Hello everybody, it's Bruce here with a video on a Python technique called list comprehensions. So this is a little bit more advanced, but I think a lot of you beginners will be able to see and understand what's going on here. So I have 6 examples, and let me go through one at a time, and feel free, and I encourage you to code along, push pause every once in a while on the video, because there's no better way to learn this stuff than by having to type it in yourself. At least that's my pro tip for today. So check out line number 1. There's a variable that has a list assigned to it, and it happens to be a bunch of random temperatures, right? A bunch of, in this case, integers that are just in a list, all right? So on line 3, you're going to see right here what's called a list comprehension. And what this is going to do is replace a lot of code that you would normally, have to write to do the same thing. And again, this is a simplified way to do what more code would generally do. So again, I suggest that you pause the video, you get this code typed in, and then resume it, and I'll wait for you right here. All right, I waited for you. So let's check this list comprehension out. Let's break it apart. So at the beginning here, there is a variable, all right? And this is the variable that's going to get assigned values to anything that gets done to the right of that variable. And you'll notice here that we have what looks like a, counted definite loop, right? So for temp in temperatures, right? You would normally write that if you wanted to iterate through the list of temperatures in the list on line number 1. So again, this is going to iterate through, loop through the list of temperatures one at a time, and it's going to receive a value into this variable called temp, all right? The next thing here is a condition that says if the temp is greater than or equal to 30 and less than or equal to 40. So it's going to loop through all of the temperatures, and then it's going to check this condition to see if the current value being iterated through meets this condition. If it's true, and then it's going to add that to this list called in range. All right, it's going to take that value for temp and add it to the list. So check this out. And before we get started, it's always good to know what the expected result should be. And I see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values that meet this condition that we're checking for in our list comprehension. And I should add that what we're going to get back is a list. That's what those square brackets are for. And right on line 5, I'm just going to print out the value for the in-range variable, which in turn is going to be a list. So I'm in the terminal, and I'm going to hit, what am I going to do here? I'm going to find the right command so I don't have to type it. Okay, and there we go. Ready? Look at that. There are 6 values that meet that criteria. All right, so how about that? All right, I know I get a lot of questions about how can I write my code more efficient, or how can I write less lines of code? And this is where list comprehensions, in addition to myself, are going to be your friend. Okay, so that's example number 1. Okay, let me clear my terminal and let me go to tab number 2. So what this is going to do is going to use a list here, and look at this list on line number 1. It contains some strings, right? And all of those strings, some of them are like numbers, right, within the string. Some of them are not, right? And some of them are, okay? So how could we use a list comprehension in Python to figure out which of these particular strings are in fact numbers or contain numerical values, all right? But again, notice they're all strings, all right? So on line 3, we have our list comprehension because we have the open and closing square brackets. And then here, we're going to cast this variable s as an integer, okay? So let's just skip over that for now. And now here's our loop, right? That says for every element in alphanumeric, for every list element, for every list item in here, S is going to receive that value as this loops through the list, and it's going to assign that value to the variable S. But then there's a condition that says, hey, if S, and it's calling the isDigit string method, and go back to one of my prior videos on Python string methods to learn more about this. And if this condition is true, it's going to take S and then force it to an integer, a number, right? And then add it to the list. So look at the list. We have 1, 2, 3 things in that list that are numbers, right? So I'm going to find my command here by hitting the up arrow. Let's see. Okay, there it is. Which are numbers, right? So I'm going to hit enter. And look at that. It gave me a list of those 3 numbers. And again, we wrote very little code to do that. Welcome to List Comprehensions in Python. All right. Again, make sure you type this in and you have the code on your computer such that when you run into a situation where you need to employ this particular technique, you have it in your personal code library. All right. So I'm going to clear the terminal and move on to the third one, the third example. And what I have here on line 4 is a function that's going to convert a Fahrenheit temperature to a Celsius temperature, and it's going to receive, right, as a parameter here, something that's a value that represents a temperature. And inside this function, that is going to be known as temp. All right. So what's going to happen in that function is it's going to just do some a formula that you can go and Google. It's going to take the Fahrenheit temperature, subtract 32, and then multiply it times 5 divided by 9, and then it's just going to round that particular value and send it back to the statement that called that function. All right. So let me just scroll down some more. And now we have on line 8 a list of temperatures. Look, they're just random random integers that are temperatures, and they're a list because of the square brackets. And we're assigning that list to a variable called temps, right? So line 10 is our list comprehension. We can see that with the opening and closing square brackets. And then what we're going to do, there's no condition here. Notice there is no condition to the right of the loop, but I'm going to go right here first. So this 4 is going to iterate through the list of temperatures one at a time. And then for each of those temperatures, it's going to call the convert Fahrenheit to Celsius function and place that converted value in a list called result. All right, so we're going to convert 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 temperatures from Fahrenheit to Celsius. And it's always good, right? Let's do this. 212, right? And let's do 32. All right, so I'll explain this in a minute. So let me just format this a little better. And I am going to run the code for my third example. Let me find it, calling a function, and enter. So the reason why I use 212 is because I know just from, being on this earth for 59 plus years, that 212 Fahrenheit is in fact 100 degrees Celsius, as you can see in the terminal, and same, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is 0 degrees Celsius, right? So there you go, and there is the list of converted temperatures, all done within a list comprehension. Again, you could do this using more basic ways, with a loop and calling the function and appending the converted temperature to a list. But with list comprehensions, you don't have to, all right? So what I suggest you do too, if you're new to Python, is try to, get this code in here and then write it without using list comprehensions. And that's going to be the same for all three of these. And you'll see yourself how you can go from multiple lines of code to a single list comprehension. All right, you still with me, y'all? All right, thanks for hanging in there. Again, that pause button is going to be your friend. All right, let's move on to the next example. I'm going to clear the terminal, and I'm going to go on to example number 4, all right, where I want to make all possible combinations of two lists. So I have on line 4 a list of colors, red, blue, and green, and on line 5, I have a list called models with mini, max, and super max. So how could we create all of the various combinations of these two lists and, print out, a list that contains all of those various combinations? So let's come back to the first part of the list comprehension on line 7. Let's look at our loop, which is iterating through, right? It has two different loop iterations. It's doing for model in models and then for color in colors. Okay, so there's two loops going on here. So it's going to iterate this as the outer loop and this as what we call an inner loop. And it's going to assign to it the model in color being iterated through. And you see these parentheses here. This is called a tuple. In fact, I can just make it for now a list. So what we're going to get in return here that's going to be assigned to result is a list of lists. A list of lists. So check this out. This is example number 4. Okay, example number 4, up arrow, up arrow, up arrow, up arrow, up. There we go. All right, here we go. So look at this carefully, right? This down here is a list. Mini red, mini blue, mini green, right? So mini red, mini blue, mini green. And then we're going to have max, right? The next one, max red, max blue, max green. And same with the super max. How about that, my friends? And notice that we have a list of lists, right? There are these individual elements in here, these items that are in fact lists inside of this outer big list here. All right? I know, right? I heard you. You're digging this. All right. So again, pause, get that typed in, and experiment and have fun. All right? And by the way, because I know someone's going to ask, I could have made these tuples. Tuples are immutable. While lists can be changed, they are mutable. And if I run this code again, you'll see here that I have a list of tuples. All right? Cool. Cool, cool, cool. So let's go on to example number 5. Find common elements within two lists, right? We have students A and students B, right? We have these students inside of here, and we have inside of students underscore A list, and we have students underscore B. So how do we find like the common names, right, without having to like do this, manually, right? I get faced with this all the time. So I created a variable called common. I've established my list comprehension, and I have my loop, which is going to iterate through, right, each of the students in the first list. And then the condition here, it's going to say, hey, if that student is also in the students underscore B list, then place that student in our common list here. Wow, right? Mind-blowing. Kaboom, right? So let's go and run example number 5. Example number 5. There we go. And look, Gail and Bruce, right, are the only two names, right, that appear in both lists. So let's go and add just Aaron here, right, Aaron, right, just like that. And let me run it again. And now we have Aaron added to our list because Aaron appeared in both of those lists. All right. All right. I hear you. I hear you all. You're like, this is cool, right? All right. Well, I think it's cool. All right. And I'm the one making the video here. All right. All right. Let's go to the last example here. Let me see if well, here we go. Let's just talk about it. We have a list that contains a bunch of first names. Okay. First names. And then we have a list that contains last names. Okay. So there we go. And we have a bunch of ages here, right? These are old ages. These aren't up to date. But how can we like print out, right, a list that contains Bruce, Elgort, who is, and then their age, right, years old? Like, how would we do that? How do we like make magic happen with these three lists to put all of it together into a list of strings that are all using F strings here to do the formatting? Well, check it out. We have our list comprehension, like I said, on line 5, but let's check out the list here. So here is something new and different. You probably haven't seen this before, but you're going to be adding this to your code library, right? Because I know you're pausing the video and typing it. Let me make this smaller here so you can see the whole line. There we go. So we have 4, first comma, last comma, age. So 3 variables here, which represent something you're going to see in a second. Because these things, these variables, first, last, and age, are going to be inserted into this F string. But here, this is what you need to know. The Python zip function. The Python zip function. It's capable of allowing you to iterate through multiple lists at one time. So you give it the first, the names of the list that you want to like do the same, iterate through together, and it will return to you, right, first, last, and age, which then gets put into here as it iterates through Bruce, through Gail, through Tucker, through Bella. So watch this. Watch this. Whoops. Come on. There we go. Here we go. Number 6. Our last example for today. And there we go. Look at that. So this list contains strings, right? Individual elements that are strings. Bruce Elgort, who is 58 years old, I wish, comma, Gail Ujifusa, who is 60 years old, Tucker Elgort, who is 6 years old, and Bella, who is 12 years old. Isn't that kind of neat? Again, try to get this typed in, but also go back and try to write this code using what you know already in Python, which is going to involve maybe loops and things like that, or nested loops. All right. So again, I'm going to just bring up these one at a time so you can go back and pause the video right now for problem number 1. There it is. Demo number 1. And number 2 is right here. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And number 6. Well, I think that's been a really, I think it's been a good intro to list comprehensions. Use your Google PhD, right, to learn more about list comprehensions. And believe it or not, I wasn't using list comprehensions in my Python work for a long time. I don't know why. I probably avoided it. I just didn't want to learn how to code them. But now I can't imagine, coding something without using list comprehensions. Thanks to all of you new subscribers to my channel. Thanks for smashing the subscribe button. and clicking on that like button and dropping a comment. I love to actually hear from you all because you always have some really great questions. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next video.